When one thinks of masculinity, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Someone into sports? A fan of Dudum Diary or Frankenstein? A master of weightlifting? Well, in ancient Rome, a muscular man was known to engage in fights to the death and public tournament. As a gladiator, it also means the shops of the second highest grossing release at the turn of the century, and 2000's Best Picture champion. Released 25 years ago, I've had a strange relationship with Gladiator. I've seen it a few times, but my reaction to it has always been the same. I think it's a perfectly fine film, but not to the length of its universal love. I keep thinking about why I feel that way. And while I do appreciate it more when I revisit it, it's only by a smidge more. In honor of its 25th anniversary, I figured this would be an ideal opportunity to explain how I feel about Gladiator, directed by Sir Ridley Scott, and how I'm not as entertained by it as others. Sin AD 800 of the Roman Empire area, Maximus is a Roman general who has led major victory against the tribes, and is named successor of Emperor Macer Amulius out of the wishes of Rome to be restored to a scented represented public for the people. When Commodus, his ill-tempered son, murders him for the throne and seeks out to kill Maximus, who escapes at the cost of losing his family in the process. In slave slavery, Maximus is trained by an elder gladiator who saves him, and a series of performances that entertain the crowd rises to the ranks to send to Rome to fight and plan his revenge, to avenge the murders of the empire and his family. At its heart, Gladiator is a revenge story, and the execution of who we're following that serves is one of its strongest issues, largely because of one key component. Of course, that is Russell Crowe's star-making role as Maximus. The gravitas of his character as this broken man who has lost so much and aspires to the top to avenge those who have betrayed them is one of element that has grown on me through whenever we see it. The opening scene greatly establishes the sheer power he has onto the field, and over the film's course, where he has to regain what he has lost, it's quite effective in terms of how he is established as a gladiator. And while he might appear static in his face, the change of his character while he engages in these battles more than makes up for it, and it does highlight why we need to care for him in the first place. I also thought Commodus was another good addition, acting as the brave rat who has killed his father for different opinions, and the power-hungry attitude he has requires much needed energy for anti sake. He is no different from a popular rich brat of adolescent age. Even if there are screens that are as the main two characters, I don't mind the older, elder supporting players either for how they guide and will impact Maximus' journey. Particularly in some great scenes that do establish the tension boiling up. Well, I found the character to be modest. That's where the narrative comes to play, and what hinders Gladiator the most in the picture as a whole for me. While I don't mind the revenge aspect, everything else starting to fall into place that makes the attack clunky. The granular scale is to be admired from how Scott delivers on how you really feel like you're watching these real battles come to life in the arena. I enjoyed that from the causes of the animal, it all feels real. The benefit of it being solid film is that it allows the more gritty texture to be felt in nature and on screen. Perfect for what Maximus encounters, like a rusty oil car. Even though it was released years prior to the game, it doesn't feel too far away from being a Royal Era movie, which is a term I have coined for how greatly I love late 2000s media design. Take the look of No Country for Old Men, There Will Be Blood, and The Dark Knight, and see how it isn't they are too far away from Mario's realistic overalls. That being said, though, set fights can range in how they're edited. A lot of it is fast and quick, but it's also in how oddly within it can get from how choppy the accent is now designed to from both Maximus's perspective and who is he fighting. Whenever he engages in a duel that requires so many close-ups of the cuts, it can be jarring, and it does leave a desire for more really in terms of how it's shot. There's a few impressive wide shots or witness of the action, and I feel more of that would have been nice. While I found the same time to mostly stick, there are some hints of dual movements that can be off-putting here or there in the settings when it's dark. Unfortunately, dull is a term that can apply to a lot of this film. Perhaps it has to do with the exceeding low energy percent outside of communists, or the layout of the story hinges to, but I found there to be a lot of that space and machine with dialogue presented to the forefront. Mainly at the opening, the start of how we enter the Maximus with the ideal balance of strong accent and compelling character, but afterwards, as we ascend Interstellar as a Gladiator, I don't find it as mesmerizing. After that, it becomes just a Gladiator movie, one that ranges from boredom to spectacle. From what I mentioned prior, the greatness hinders the liveliness of how it's played out, and which is not helped by how the dialogue can also range from weighty to weaky, and the story can suffer as a result from how the screenplay is executed. It is to be noted that the film was constantly redoing its development, not helped by the loss of one of the major actors where film was finished, which I can figure as to why the film turned out the way it is. Ultimately, my biggest problem with the film is that it sacrificed so much of skill that it almost rings almost. Almost. What saves it from that fate is how Maximus does his best into making his character work as well as does. Without him, I wonder how much of this I would still feel without practicing with him that I can latch on to make it all go well and not just feel cold. Something that I've noted over the years is how important character is to a work, from the biggest scale to the smallest. The type of action blockbusters Hollywood produced are a particular example, or so much of them are mindless drivel that don't offer much beyond visual eye candy that makes it hard to remember them as soon as you finish them. To be fair though, what saves life from a similar fate is Maximus, whose emotional weight carries his film on his back until it's close enough for him to feel. The ending is fantastic, and I will play the opening with similar sadness, but I wish the whole film was of that quality than the rather murky middle that can be sometimes great, but also sometimes boring. I wonder if it's a testament of not being there when there was released, or not getting a chance to see it in their actual setting. Even if I definitely disagree on how it was framed as 2000's Best Picture actor, I give kudos to how the film, well, I only respected more so for its sort of sound approach to the new century, I can also appreciate it and highlight the degrees of good and bad it has. That ultimately equal to a film I think is well made, but doesn't point me more as the one. Compared to how I feel about the sequel that was released last autumn, I think Gladiator 1 is definitely a better film. The might be more time I had in Gladiator 2 from the time spent since and how Scott directs the action of Greater Heights. But the problem I took with the film is more overbearing than what I had issues with in the first. Not helped by the weaker protagonist story that repeats the first, but also tries to be its own thing about legacy, but ultimately doesn't flourish because of the weak rating. It's one of those films that has left no lasting impression on me aside from how, again, some of the aspects of worked on me, and parts of the story and cast do have their moments. But I don't have a desire to reviews that I assume. The most memorable experience I had with Latitude was when the trailer played in front of my late Sunday night viewing of Substance, or had their smells of Fred's remix up, I sacrificed all the money on the viewing for the film instead. And when the rebellion part came on screen, I laughed myself trying to pretend it was some kind of twisted reference to Madonna Bajika by chance. There was a point in between where I had the opportunity to pick up the Gladiator helmet for myself and done a few days. But I decline in favor of other ventures. When it comes to Gladiator, while it might not be at the height of greatness for me that other Scott or Crowe projects are, it's a film I can appreciate for the great thing it does at its lower ends, but also criticize for the dimmer and duller aspects that bring it down. Creating a film that has still in size, scope, and score that makes it linger more than other films I would have a similar quality, but could have used a more outstanding script and story and character, especially with the former. According to sense for later, I suppose I was more entertained than not by the story of Maximus, on par with how Allisons were feeling when they walked into that theater in May 2000s to watch how Hero will rise to the top. Remember, it's simply just fun.